Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going over my 5 players that I can't stop drafting right now in 2023 fantasy football drafts. But before we can go on in depth into these 5 players, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into the top 5 players that I can't stop drafting in 2023 fantasy football drafts right now. We begin at number 1 with my guy, 9-inch Nicholas Chubb, running back of the Cleveland Browns. Currently coming off the board on Underdog Fantasy is the RB5 at pick 17.6. He is currently going ahead of Saquon Barkley, most likely due to the contract worries with Saquon Barkley, I think, in late August or early September. As long as that contract situation is kind of ironed out, I think Saquon will go ahead of Chubb, and Chubb will fall to the RB number 6. Last year was the RB 5.5 PPR and the running back 6.5 PPR points per game, playing in 17 games last season. He had 302 carries, 17.8 per game, number 3rd at running back, 1,525 rushing yards, 89.7 per game, number 3, 37 targets, 2.2 per game, number 31, 27 receptions, 1.6 per game, number 33, 239 receiving yards, 14.1 per game, 24th, and 13 total touchdowns, number 3 at running back. Now, it seems very unlikely that Kareem Hunt is going to return to the team, and it appears that Jerome Ford is going to be the running back number 2 on the team. Now, even without Kareem Hunt, I highly doubt that Nick Chubb is magically going to transform into a 60, 70 plus target running back, and I don't think he even needs all of those targets to potentially finish as a top 3 running back in fantasy football this year. Last year, it was an up and down season for the Cleveland Browns. Jacoby Brissett played much better than I thought he would, but obviously Jacoby Brissett isn't some elite quarterback in the NFL. Then they went to Deshaun Watson after he finished his suspension, and Deshaun Watson absolutely reeked. Every single Sunday, it was very bad to watch. It was hard to watch at times because Deshaun Watson was this guy that was a top 3 quarterback, top 5 quarterback in the NFL, a guy that you could have seen win an MVP in Houston, and then he goes to Cleveland. He's incredibly rusty, and he looks like fucking Stevie Wonder trying to throw the football. But now we move to 2023, and I highly doubt that Deshaun Watson is going to be an absolute garbage can like last season. Now, will he return to be that prime Deshaun Watson that's potentially a top 3 quarterback in the NFL? I'm not sure, but he's definitely going to be better than what Jacoby Brissett was last season, and a hell of a lot better than what he was last season. I think this is a Cleveland Browns offense that is loaded with talent. They have Amari Cooper. They bring in Elijah Moore. There's talks about DeAndre Hopkins coming there. I'm not saying that's a guarantee to happen, but they do have a Donovan Peoples-Jones as well, David Njoku. This is a very good offense that wants to run the rock with 9-inch Nicholas Chubb game in and game out. This motherfucker scored 13 touchdowns last season while the Browns were just meh. Imagine what's going to happen if the Browns offense is a lot better. And this guy was incredibly efficient last season. 4.8 true yards per carry, 9th at running back. 5.4 true yards per touch, 13th. 40.4% juke rate, 4th. And 984 yards created, 57.9 per game, number 6. The competition behind him, it's not like Jerome Ford is going to magically take over unless there's an injury, knock on wood. We got to hope Nick Chubb can stay healthy, and if he does, I really believe he has the skill, he has the it factor, and he has enough carries to finish as a top 3 running back. Moving to number 2, the number 2 player I can't stop drafting, and that is Justin Fields, quarterback of the Chicago Bears. Current Underdog ADP quarterback 6 at pick 49.2. He was the quarterback 6 last season and the quarterback 6 in points per game, tied with Lamar Jackson, playing in 15 games in 2022. He had 318 pass attempts, 21.2 per game, ranking 27th, 2,242 passing yards, 149.5 per game, 26th, 17 passing touchdowns at a 5.3% rate, 16th, 11 interceptions, 10th, but the kicker here, right, he wasn't the greatest passer all of last season. If you actually look at the stats, he didn't look great early on. If you remember that game up against the Commanders in prime time, I think it was a Thursday night football game. Could have been Sunday night, could have been Monday night. It was a disaster to watch. It was the battle of mid. Justin Fields looked like really bad. I thought he tore every bone in his, or tore every muscle in his body, broke every bone. I don't know if you remember that game. He got laid out, and then he arose like the Undertaker from the depths. But yeah, he wasn't the greatest passer last season. He got better towards the end of last season. The kicker, obviously, is the rushing upside. 160 carries second, 1,143 rushing yards, 1,100 plus rushing yards first, 8 rushing touchdowns second. He was really efficient in the red zone, 7.4 red zone accuracy rating, fourth. He was 17th in QBR with 53.9 and a 5.9 deep ball accuracy rating with 16. He is going behind guys like Lamar Jackson, who he tied with in points per game last season, as well as he's going behind Joe Burrow. Now, I get in a 6-point per passing touchdown league, you might want to draft Joe Burrow ahead of Justin Fields, but I legitimately think that Justin Fields in a 4-point per passing touchdown league should be drafted ahead of Joe Burrow. Sure, Joe Burrow is a much better passer than Justin Fields, and he is on a much better offense, but Joe Burrow doesn't have the opportunity to rush for 10 plus touchdowns, to have over 1,000 rushing yards, and in 4-point per passing touchdown leagues, rushing quarterbacks are cheat codes. Now, this is a topic that everyone already knows about, right? We've been talking about rushing quarterbacks as cheat codes for years, the up, down, left, right fucking Konami code, right? But Justin Fields is a better passer than I think people give him credit for. Even these stats that I talked about, if you actually watch the games deeper into last season, he greatly improved as a passer. He now is in an offense with a better wide receiver and a better offensive line. This offensive line was folding like a table that the Buffalo Bills fans light on fire and jump through, right? This was an offensive line that was letting people just run a train on them. Their wide receiver core, Darnell, here comes the Mooney, didn't live up to what I thought he would be. They bring in Chase Claypool, but the biggest move was bringing in Wiki DJ Moore in that trade where they lose the number 1 pick, obviously, to trade to the Carolina Panthers. I like DJ Moore a ton, and I think he adds another dynamic piece to this offense. Justin Fields hasn't been the best player at the NFL level, I fully admit that, but it really felt like when the head coach of the team, Eberflus, started molding this offense towards what Justin Fields does best towards the end of last season, which was running the ball. They really started figuring things out, and again, with a better offensive line, with a better wide receiver 1, I have full confidence in Justin Fields to potentially finish, again, because of that crazy rushing upside, as the quarterback number 1. Moving to player number 3, we have Quentin Johnston of the LA Chargers, wide receiver, current underdog ADP wide receiver 42 at pick 80.9. Well, now we have talked about Underdog Fantasy a couple of times in today's video, and they are the sponsor of today's video. If you guys are new to Underdog Fantasy, they are the best place to play fantasy football this summer, and they have the biggest best ball contest ever. What best ball is, if you're new to it, it's the best part about fantasy football. It's the draft, and that's it. You do an 18-round draft. There's no waivers, no in-season management, and no trades. Underdog automatically edits your lineup every single week to put the highest scores in at the end of the week. And like I said, they have the biggest contest ever. $25 to enter, Best Ball Mania 4, 150 max entries, $3 million to first place, $15 million in total prizes. So make sure you guys check that out. Link in the video description. They also just have regular drafts. So if you don't want to join some big tournament, you can just do a best ball draft for $3 against 11 other people, and you can come back at the end of the season and win some money that way as well. So if you're new, make sure you click on the link in the video description or use promo code Notorious for a $100 first match deposit bonus up to $100. So you deposit $100, you get an additional $100. You deposit $50, you get an additional $50, $25, you get an additional $25. If you have any questions about it, ask me down below in the comment section. And if you have any questions about these players, or maybe you don't like any of these players that I've talked about, let me know down below. Sound off in the comments. So now we move back to Quentin Johnston. So this is going to be his rookie year. He played 3 years at TCU, made it all the way to the national championship. If you watch the national championship, though, that was far from QJ's best game. 13 games played in 2022, 60 receptions on 96 targets, 1,069 receiving yards, 17.7 YPR yards per reception, 6 touchdowns, 21.2% target rate, and a 62.5% catch rate. He was drafted inside of the first round of the 2023 NFL Draft at pick number 21. If you guys remember, a bunch of wide receivers went in a row in that draft at the pick, 19 to 22, something like that, when the Ravens got Zay Flowers, when the Seahawks got JSN. Quentin Johnston went to the LA Chargers in that range. 6'3", 208 pounds. He forced 18 tackles last season, ranking him 8th amongst Power 5 receivers. Prior to the NFL Draft, PFF's Mitch Kaiser stated that his best NFL traits are height, elusiveness, deep ball threat, acceleration, and body control, which I completely agree with from watching his tape. Reports out of camp right now are that QJ is turning heads, and Justin Herbert has spoke very, very highly of him, incredibly highly. Now, the problem here with Quentin Johnston is some people will say pick 80.9 is too high for him due to the fact that he's pretty clearly the wide receiver 3 on this team, and some might say that Palmer is ahead of him, right? And I get that. But he's going to pick 80.9 on underdog when you don't have to figure out when to start him, because when he has those spike weeks, those crazy games, because he's on an incredibly high-powered offense, he just goes into your lineup and you don't have to actually worry about starting him. When I've done regular mock drafts, for redraft, he typically goes past pick 100, where he's not free, but a lot of that risk of, oh, he's the wide receiver 3, might be the wide receiver 4, oh, blah, blah, blah. I have to figure out when to start him. You don't really need to worry too much when he's going past pick 100, right? Because he's that later round dart throw kind of a pick. He looked really good in college. Like I said, his tape looks outstanding. This is a guy that if something happened to Keenan Allen or Mike Williams would instantly elevate himself into a top 24 weekly ranking guy, assuming the matchup's good, right? Of course, if he goes up against some incredibly tough matchup, then I'll be like, okay, calm your titties down a little bit on Quentin Johnston. But if the matchup's good and one of those guys gets hurt, knock on wood, we don't root for injuries, this guy will be a league winner, in my opinion. There's just no doubt about that, with especially how good Justin Herbert, the pervert, looks. So, again, I understand that some people might be a little bit nervous to draft him because he's the wide receiver 3 on his own team. But I think with, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams isn't necessarily the most healthy wide receiver to ever grace the NFL. Something could happen, and Quentin Johnston could be the wide receiver 2 on that team. And at ADP, that is a steal. And then if he's got a good matchup, he moves on up to be the clear number 3 wide receiver. Wouldn't shock me if he commanded a decent amount of targets every single game and was not like a guy, oh, you got to start Quentin Johnston every single week, but became a guy that you weren't upset about starting. Moving now to player number 4, we have another one of the guys that I have loved for years, James Conner, running back of the Arizona Cardinals. Now, last year, James Conner was a player that you had to draft inside the top 3 rounds of fantasy football drafts, and now he's going at running back 28, pick 87.7. He was the running back 20 in half PPR last year and the running back 10 in half PPR points per game. Playing in 13 games last season, he had 183 carries, 14.1 per game, ranking 28th, 782 rushing yards, 60.2 per game, 30th, 58 targets, 4.5 per game, 12th, 46 receptions, 3.5 per game, 13th, 300 receiving yards, 23.1 per game, 17th, and 8 total touchdowns, 16th at running back. Now, he wasn't the most efficient in terms of yards per carry. The true yards per carry number from Player Profiler, 4.2 true yards per carry, 33rd, though he did evade 64 tackles, 4.9 per game, 13th, 709 receiving yards, 54.5 per game, 17th, and a 28.8% dominator rating, 9th. Alex Caruso, fantasy football NFL analyst, not the guy that's bald that plays in the NBA, tweeted, James Conner averages 22.5 fantasy points per game when Kyler Murray is out over the past 2 seasons, 2021, 2022, which would be the running back 1 overall in fantasy in 2021 and 2022. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be the running back 1. That's at Alex Caruso on Twitter if you want to check him out. Not saying that. But running back number 28 is so fucking crazy to me. So crazy to me. I know, again, James Conner's another one of these guys. Not the definition of health, right? He always gets banged up. But where he's going, I don't get it. I don't get it at all. Even if Kyler never returns next season, even if they roll out David Blau or Colt 45 and 2 zigzags, Colt McCoy is the starting quarterback, they're going to run. Run, baby, run. And James Conner is great at that. And he's a great receiving running back. We've known that ever since Le'Veon Bell was taking jet skis around Miami, and James Conner got to be the starting running back in Pittsburgh, and then Le'Veon Bell's career spiraled off the edge of the earth. And now he boxes YouTube influencers, so maybe I could take on Le'Veon Bell. I'm just kidding. That guy would beat the dog piss out of me. But James Conner, again, the price is right for drafting him. The price makes no sense, but it's right for you because you get him later on. Now, I've noticed in regular drafts, he goes in redraft leagues, right? Not on underdog. He goes in the 5th round, right? So he's not this crazy discount that he is on underdog. That's why I say you should draft on underdog, right? Link in the video description. But I think that James Conner, even in the 5th round, seems like a pretty solid price for a guy that could finish as the running back. Maybe not the running back 1, right? Even though that Alex Caruso tweet kind of points towards that. I think that'd be a little bit crazy. But, right, he could easily finish as a top 12 running back, and he's coming off the board as running back number 28. So, again, let's just be honest. The guy was good last year. He just got hurt, and that kind of sunk people's opinion on him, right? If you remember last season, you probably remember there was points where he played like shit. You're like, I shouldn't have drafted James Conner, but it's because you drafted him in the 3rd round or the 2nd round potentially. Now you're getting him at a much bigger discount. Final player that I can't stop drafting right now in 2023 fantasy football drafts. We got Tyler Higbee, tight end of the LA Rams, current underdog ADP, tight end 16 at pick 148.5. Now, when I did my initial run of tight end rankings, some people did comment about, Nick, maybe you're a little low on Tyler Higbee. Now, I had him ranked ahead of where he was going on underdog, but still people thought I was a little low. And I started to think about things a little bit more. And then I realized that Tyler Higbee, his ADP is pretty off because besides Matthew Stafford, right, they have Matthew Stafford. They have Matthew Stafford, obviously, as their quarterback, and it seems like Stafford might actually be fully healthy, which is something that I worried about. What I went with that initial, what I was kind of trying to go about with that initial thought was Cooper Kupp is the guy, right? Obviously, everyone fucking knows that, anyone with a brain. But besides Cooper Kupp, they have Van Jefferson, Puka Nuwara. Like, they don't really have a lot of options, so Higbee's going to fall probably ass backwards into 100-plus targets again. He was the tight end 9.5 PPR last year, tight end 18.5 PPR points per game. Sure, his points per game number wasn't great, but that's because Stafford got hurt pretty early on into last season. 17 games played in 2022, 108 targets, 6.4 per game, 4th. 72 receptions, 4.2 per game, 5th. 620 receiving yards, 36.5 per game, 9th. Top 10 targets, receptions, receiving yards. Where everything fell off, where everything kind of went downhill, only 3 touchdowns, 20th. You have to think, even though I think the Rams are just a garbage team as a whole, right? They sold off pieces, right? You can kind of understand they're not in the Super Bowl shape they were just 2 years ago, right? But you have to think if Stafford's able to stay healthy, Higbee's going to smash at tight end 16, 18.2% dominator rating, 14th, 20.9% target share, 4th, 24.9% target rate, 6th. He's going to have one of the highest target shares at tight end because this team doesn't have a lot of options to throw the fucking ball to. Sure, Cooper Kupp's going to get roughly 7 gazillion targets, but Higbee probably will be number 2 in targets on the team. And if he's not number 2, he's going to be close at number 3, I think, with Van Jefferson. So I think he'd be pretty close with Jefferson. So I think Higbee right now, it just, like, we've seen Higbee. He's good. And tight end 16 just seems low for a guy that's almost probably a shoo-in to finish inside the top 12 if Stafford's able to stay healthy. So thank you guys all so much for watching. Let me know, sound off in the comments. What did you guys think about today's 5 players that I can't stop drafting? I love you guys all so much. Hope if you did end up enjoying, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. I hope you all have a great guys' day. And as always, good boy.